the Texans consider drafting a running back? Here are 4 running backs that I believe they could take. And before we get into that, why would they ever draft a running back? Well, the answer is simple. You have Joe Mixon, yes, as your running back one. You have no faith in Dameon Pierce. Now, the Texans have shown to us again and again and again that the only thing they trust Dameon Pierce to do for this team is return kicks. I like him returning kicks. I like him, I think, a lot more running the ball than I think the Texans did. That might change with Nick Caley, but here are some running backs they can use if they choose to go down that road. I'm going to start from lowest draft capital, probably, to highest. And this first pick is going to go in the 4th or 3rd round, and then we'll move up from there. So the first person that I have, fan favorite on my list, is Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. He's the 5th-year senior from Arizona State. Now, Cam Skattebo is a dog. Let's get into some of his measurements. 5 feet, 10 inches, 225 pounds. Really good weight for a little bit of an undersized back. Now, he had 293 carries, 1,700 yards, and 21 touchdowns in 2024. 1,200 of those yards came after contact, which is just awesome. In 2022, he had 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns. This was definitely his breakout year, and we all remember his notable performance against Texas, where he had 2 touchdowns, went for a $143 on 30 carries. What's there to like about Skattebo? Skattebo is the type of runner who will just run through you. He's a powerful runner. He bounces off tackles. He has a really low center of gravity, and that strong base makes him almost impossible to wrap up and just pull down off of your first try, especially if you're a cornerback trying to tackle him from the second level. He also has really good balance, and he's kind of slippery. He's a tone setter, and he basically runs just extremely pissed off. I think if you've watched any tape of Skattebo, what jumps off the page is that he runs like he's pissed off, and he's hard to tackle, and he runs with a lot of effort. That's the other thing. This dude, such a high effort player, and it really comes off in how he runs. Almost runs like a Pacheco, where they just look like they're angry at the ground when they run. Again, really hard not to root for this guy. He's got that intensity and that toughness he plays with. He's also a great pass catcher. He's got soft hands. And one thing I think he's really underrated at is transitioning from just being a guy you dump the ball off to then a runner. It's not awkward. There's little wasted movement. There's no awkward little jumps or body catches with the ball. It's bam, catch with those soft hands, and now I'm a runner again. So that transition's really seamless, and that's another thing I really like about Skattebo. Now let's get into some brief cons. I think one of the biggest issues with him is that he had 10 fumbles over his college career. He had 4 fumbles this year. And I understand that, Arizona State puts the game in this dude's hands. He's fighting off tackles. He's getting tackled by 3, 4, 5 guys. They're trying to punch the ball out. They're trying to drag him down. So that's going to happen. But at the same time, you just cannot cough up the football that many times in the NFL. It's a great way for a running back to get cut from a roster. I think that, and then, along with some of his kind of undersizedness, if that's even a word, at his height, could be a reason why he falls and is a reason why he's at the bottom of my list. He's also extremely volatile in the pass protection game. I have seen clips of him head down spearing an edge rusher trying to block them. And if you do that in the NFL, that rusher is going to extend his arm and throw you to the ground one-handed. And that's dangerous too, right? Could break his neck. You don't want to see something like that happen. But there are also reps where he perfectly times it and picks up the blitzer or whoever it may be, chipping an edge or whatever. And so it looks good. So he's definitely not the worst pass protection back I have on this list. Wouldn't say he's necessarily the best either. And then one other thing I'll say about his running ability that is a little, I guess, leaves a lot to be desired would be his lateral agility, his lateral cuts. It's definitely there. It's just a little stiff. And you kind of expect that from a guy who just wants to run through people. He just wants to get downhill. He wants to get vertical. He's not going to outrun you with his speed, but he just wants to hit you and make it very hard for you to tackle. Ironically, I think he almost runs similarly to Dameon Pierce, to where Dameon Pierce just wants to run through you, and there's not as much finesse in his game. But that's Skattebo at number 4. At number 3, we have Devin Neal. Now, this is a name to keep your eyes on and to remember because the Texans seem to really like Devin Neal. At least they did in the Senior Bowl. Devin Neal, the Kansas Jayhawks running back, he's a senior. 5'11", 215 pounds. So a little bit taller, a little bit lighter than Skattebo. In 2021, he had 700 yards and he did not start. He was not the starting running back. In 2022, he had a 1,000-yard season. In 2023, he had 1,280 yards, 16 tutties, and 217 receiving yards. And in 2024, he had 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns on 219 carries, and 254 receiving yards. So let me put this out there. He has had 760 carries over the past 4 years, and he's been averaging basically 6 yards a carry over his last 3 seasons. Okay, that was a lot of stats and a lot of information, but Devin Neal has by far been the most productive running back in college football. He's got 3,000-yard seasons and one 700-yard season when he wasn't even the starter. He also holds the record for the Kansas's most rushing yards, in a season and all time. So this dude is productive. Oh, by the way, no fumbles over those last 4 seasons, at least not in the regular season, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think I'm correct about that, though. No fumbles. So look, you're averaging 6 yards a carry over 3 seasons. You're going to turn some heads. I pointed him out because I do think the Texans, and I've heard that the Texans seem to have liked this dude at the Senior Bowl. So that's always something to keep in mind. He's from Lawrence, Kansas. He was a 4-star recruit. Thing I like about Devin Neal is he sees the holes open up very well. He's also a great playmaker after the catch. He's a receiver that you can add to the passing attack. Similar to Scadaboo, you definitely get a receiving threat in Devin Neal. I do think with Devin Neal, there's a little more IQ at the position. He's not necessarily trying to run through you like Scadaboo is, but he knows when to go through the hole, when to be patient, and when to wait. One kind of con, I guess you could say, about Neal is his long speed's probably not there, and his numbers could look pretty bad in the combine, which is, I think, something you're going to want to look out for when the combine rolls around. Nevertheless, he has the mindset, he has the availability, he has the toughness. There's a lot of intangibles there, and there is a lot to like about Devin Neal. So moving into second, this is where we start getting maybe, early in day 2, maybe a round 3 pick, maybe a second round pick. How about Dylan Sampson? Dylan Sampson is the Tennessee running back, 5'11", 200 pounds, and he's a true junior. In 2024, 1,490 yards, 22 touchdowns, 462 touches in his whole college career. To put that in perspective, Devin Neal was at 700. He's at 400. There is a lot of tread on the tire with Dylan Sampson. And make no mistake about it, Dylan Sampson is a speed back. He wants to kill you with speed. He was a track athlete in high school. I think he ran like a 10-4 100-meter dash in high school. That's obviously outdated, but man, there's a lot to like about Dylan Sampson. I think what I like most about Sampson is he can work in a bunch of different run schemes. And that's kind of what you get when you get a speed back. You get a guy who isn't necessarily chained to like an outside run or a power or whatever gap scheme. He can do it in any system. There's also a lot of twitch to Dylan Sampson. There's a lot of sharp cuts, and he's very, very, very explosive. That beginning acceleration, he starts and can stop so quickly, making him a true speed back if you're a speed back kind of a guy. He is a receiving threat. He's not the most amazing receiver. He's not the most, runner. The transition from him running to him receiving isn't super seamless. He's also a little undersized, only 200 pounds at 5'11". And again, if I'm going to keep talking about some cons, I think I have to bring up the elephant in the room is he's more of a one-dimensional running threat. He's not going to be your bell cow running back, but if you're drafting him to put him behind Joe Mixon, who is, and you want to add a little bit of speed to that room, that's a great 1-2 punch. Look at what the Lions have with their running back room. And one other thing I'll add about Dylan Sampson is there is a little bit of fumble history, which could be a concern. Again, greatest way to get off a roster is to start fumbling the football because you'll get cut immediately. What I like about Dylan Sampson, though, is he has great lateral quickness, great patience, and great vision. And, I don't want to pin him as just a bad receiver this early. He could definitely develop into a receiving threat. There's a lot. And again, only 460 touches. There's a lot more to this guy. The ceiling is definitely up there for Dylan Sampson. And now moving into my number 1, and make no mistake about this guy could go at the end of the first round. If the Texans felt like drafting a running back at their current draft spot at 25. This might be the guy. I don't know how I'd feel about that. I don't think they'll do it. But how about Caleb Johnson, the Iowa Hawkeyes running back, 6 feet tall, 225 pounds, a junior. This dude put up 1,500 yards and 21 touchdowns in 2024, grew up in Hamilton, Ohio, and was a 3-star recruit out of Caleb Johnson. Let's start talking about Caleb Johnson's career. As a true freshman in 2022, Johnson started 6 games and he set a freshman record for 780 rushing yards. So this dude's a dog. He also returned kickoffs as a freshman. Then he would go on to only start 5 of 10 games in 2023. Again, only played 10 games, only started 5 of those. But he did have a high ankle sprain that he suffered. So injury concern starts to come to fruition here. But then it stops quickly because he returns fully healthy in 2024. Again, one of the most productive running backs in college football in 2024, partly because of Iowa's really physical offensive line. But I'll say it right now, Caleb Johnson has potential to just be the flat out best runner in this running back class. I mean, this running back class is loaded, but he has potential to be that. The IQ, the awareness, just the instincts of knowing when to bump it outside, when to cut back in, the ability to escape, to be twitchy, to infuse that with speed. I mean, there's a lot to like about Caleb Johnson. And again, some pros. He's got a good vision. He's got good feel for the front. He doesn't get super picky with his reads. He doesn't try to, hesitate and wait for the big play. He knows, again, when to attack, and he's quick to process that. And he knows when to just press the line of scrimmage, when to just move the pile. Now, once he's in the hole, he showcases really nifty work addressing like lateral contact. So if he gets hit, he'll bounce, he'll slide. He's not like a pinball, but he's really good at absorbing hits. So if that makes any sense, I don't know. Not like a Marshawn Lynch, but kind of just like a guy who absorbs, like a Dameon Pierce, I guess I'll keep referring to since he's on our team. He can also stick out his arm. He can take his arm and stiff arm you, put you in the turf, and just really, really good at absorbing contact, partly due to that really strong lower base and that size at 6 feet. I mean, this dude is pretty big for one of the bigger running backs on this list. He can also transition from a powerful running force to just a shifty back once he gets to the second and third level. This is probably what I like most about Caleb Johnson. What kind of points him to be maybe that, bell cow running back is that, yeah, he's going to push the pile. He's going to hit you when he's at the line. But then once he gets to that second level, there's some evasion. There's some lateral quickness. There's some shiftiness. There's some ability to bump it outside, sprint down the sideline with him. So like I said, late first round pick potentially in this guy. So now to get into some cons, the pass protection is always something that I think running backs coming out of college can work on. Sometimes he knows where he's supposed to be, but he doesn't execute it. Again, he also wasn't asked to do a lot of receiving at Iowa. It was a lot of just running. He was maybe the check down a couple of times. So that's something you could point to where there's still a lot left to wonder. Could he develop into a pass catcher? Was he just not asked to do it? Or is there actually some limitations with pass catching? I don't think the pass catching thing's a huge deal, but we just haven't seen it yet. And then one thing I'll also say is, yes, he's twitchy at that second level, but he's not necessarily a back that has like insane speed. Like he's not really the back that once he's gone, he's gone. He has been tracked down by, quick safeties, quick cornerbacks taking good angles on him. And sometimes he just stiff arms them into the ground, which is great. But he's not always going to kill you with his speed. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this video. Those are 4 running backs the Texans could potentially draft. But what do you think? Do you think we should be drafting a running back right now? Do you think maybe we wait until later rounds? And are there any prospects that you like as well? So that's all I got for this video, guys. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one, man. Peace out.